is also our commencement speaker, Mr. Beto O'Rourke. I remember a couple of years ago receiving a phone call at our office, and my special assistant, executive assistant, came in and said, Congressman O'Rourke would like to have breakfast with you. And I panicked for a moment because I didn't recognize Congressman O'Rourke as being someone from the Dallas delegation, because he wasn't. He was from El Paso, which is what I thought, but I could not understand why the congressman from El Paso wanted to visit. And we went to breakfast at one of my favorite breakfast locations, and I was amazed. I was amazed to sit across the table from someone who had so much passion for the right causes, has so much passion for this state and this country, for someone who lived out loud, who had the courage to ask difficult questions and struggled with finding difficult answers. And as I watched his ascent through the national landscape, we invited him to come speak to our summer bridge class last summer. And I listened to his remarks. I watched the way he connected with our students and how he made our family his family. And then we sat and watched Betomania take over the country. But he remained the same person throughout it all. He wanted to see this country live up to its best ideals. Now, there are those of you out there who think that this invitation is a political invitation. I would highlight to you that last year's speaker was the Republican mayor from Plano. This year's speaker happens to be a Democrat. We are a bipartisan institution. Do not try and get us in trouble with our nonprofit status, okay? We are fair and unbiased, okay? My point to you is this. Beto O'Rourke is not here because of the office he's running for. He is here because he is no stranger to Paul Quinn College. He is here because he believes in the things that we believe. He is here because he believes in serving this country. He is here because he understands leadership. He is here because he knows what sacrifice is. He understands inherently the idea of we over me. And when you look for commencement speakers to leave a message for your graduates, to leave a message to your community, you want them to be individuals that represent who they could grow up to become. And we have done that at Paul Quinn College for the 12, and this is my 13th commencement, and we have done that. But I am extraordinarily proud to award this honorary degree to someone who I have met his family, I have stayed in his home, I have seen him interact with people and treat everyone the same, which reminds me of the line from one of our favorite poems, the poem If, that talks about if you can walk with kings and not lose the common touch. So, for walking with kings and not losing the common touch, for believing that we all can be better than those of us on our worst days, for believing in the power of service, for believing that we over me can be the law of the land. It gives me great honor to bestow upon you this honorary degree and all the rights and privileges that are associated with it, and welcome to the Paul Quinn College family. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Mr. Beto O'Rourke.
Buenos días. Good morning. Felicidades a todos que van a graduar este día. To all the graduates, all the hard work, all the sacrifice, all the commitment, to all of your families, especially the President family from Temple, Texas, who I met last night in our hotel lobby. They were so fired up. So many hours before the actual graduation exercise. I can only imagine what you are feeling right now. To Tori, to every one of you who has made this such a special moment, not just for yourselves and for your families and for Paul Quinn College, but for this country. I thank you for the inspiration. To President Sorrell, to the Board of Trustees, to Chairman Clevenger, I am grateful for the invitation to be here with you today, to have the distinct honor and privilege of addressing the graduates and hoping to impart something of shared meaning and value for all of us. But before I do, let me just say this. As both Hugh and Lorenza shared with all of us, President Michael Sorrell has been a singular figure in your lives. And I just want to tell you he has in my life as well. From that first morning that I met him at that breakfast, to spending some time with him in his office, I found that he does not only exude kindness and greatness and courage and service, but he also draws that forth from every single one of us. He wants us to be the best people that we can possibly be, not just the students here at Paul Quinn College, not just a member of Congress, anybody in any part of his life that he encounters. That is the effect and the impact that he has on them. So I am so grateful to know you, to count you as a friend, and to be inspired by the example that you set. Thank you, President Sorrell. As the President shared, I had the opportunity to be here at the Summer Bridge program this past summer. And that experience has stayed with me ever since. And I've done my best to share what I've learned with my fellow Texans and now with my fellow Americans. From the opening invocation, where we were challenged to meet disappointment with a power and joy, words that I've used to remind myself in my moments of despair or disappointment that we must power through, we must find joy in the work before us, or else we must give up. And that is not an option for me, and that certainly has not been an option for you. Or understanding the story of the Heritage Bell, those who begin their journey at Paul Quinn College touch on the first day of that Summer Bridge program. A bell that was reclaimed from a slave plantation to be placed here, and something that you all touched last night at the flag raising ceremony. One of the last things that you will do before you leave here. Remembering that we can turn one of the most shameful chapters in this country's history and past and legacy into a symbol of triumph for the students here and for this country at large. But we must also acknowledge that the work is far from over, that bell reminds us not just of what we have overcome, but what we must still overcome in our lives. The legacies of slavery, of segregation, of Jim Crow, of suppression in every single part of this country now in the year 2019 is alive and well. Because power and privilege in this country will continue to accumulate more power and privilege. There is an inertia there that cannot be stopped unless we choose to stop it. There is no corresponding inertia to change to the victories that we need to establish by the fights that we are willing to wage. And in fact, not only is the work not done in this country, but the victories that have been won, the sacrifices that have been made can be lost and squandered if we are not mindful of our responsibilities and our opportunities now. I'll give you an example. In 1924, in my hometown of El Paso, Texas, Dr. Lawrence Nixon paid his poll tax, walked into fire station number 5, and attempted to vote as a U.S. citizen, as a Texan, as a man in his own democracy, and was turned away based on the color of his skin and the fact that the state of Texas had legislated an all-white Democratic primary in a state where the Democratic Party was the only party that mattered. Dr. Lawrence Nixon did not accept that, did not accept his disappointment, met it with a power and joy, and took his case to the Supreme Court of the United States of America, not once, but twice. His persistence and his patience ultimately produced a victory, not just for Dr. Lawrence Nixon, not just for the people of El Paso or of Texas, but of this country. But it took him 20 years, almost to the day. In 1944, he walked back into fire station number 5 and was able to vote. And you would think, given that legacy, his sacrifice, the example that he set, we would be all about voting in this state. And yet at the eve of the last election in 2018, Texas ranked 50th in voter turnout in the United States of America. And it is not because we love our democracy or our right to vote any less than anyone else in any other state in this country. It's because we were drawn that way literally by the state legislature based on race and ethnicity and country of national origin. People were drawn out of elected representative districts, diminishing the power of their vote and any chance that their voice would be heard. When that is exacerbated by voter ID laws that allow you to use your license to carry a firearm to prove who you are at the ballot box, will not allow you to use your student ID at Quinn College to prove who you are at the ballot box. We understand what is happening, and the result is not by accident. It was ordained by those who are already in power. But I tell you, despite this, I have hope, because there are people who stand up against this, and they are winning this fight right now. At Prairie View A&M, situated in Waller County, a county that is 75% white, an institution and a school that is 80% African American, during early voting in 2018, there was no polling location at Prairie View A&M. And to add to that, and to exacerbate the problems, there was confusion about where those students were registered to vote, giving them an excuse and a reason not to vote at all. But students like Brittany Vesey would not accept that disappointment, met it with a power and joy, and she and other students, more than 1,000 of them, marched more than 6 miles to the polling location, some of them waiting 5 hours in order to vote, but they cast their votes, and they helped to fundamentally transform democracy in the state of Texas. Today, we are no longer 50th in the nation in voter turnout. Every election counts, every vote matters. Young voter turnout up 500% in this state from the last election. So young men and women are thinking like you, making the difference and ensuring that we can sustain the victories that have been won in the past. I was recently in Charleston, South Carolina, and had the opportunity to join some world historical heroes in that community, who in 1969, 50 years ago, led a strike and a march to protest working conditions and wages at the Medical University of South Carolina Hospital. African American men, and especially African American women, were being paid a fraction of their white counterparts, what their white counterparts were being paid in the same facility, in the same institution. And so they struck and they marched, initially 400 workers, joined by thousands of people in the streets of Charleston, South Carolina. And in fact, in 1969, this became the first public event that Coretta Scott King attended after the assassination and murder of her husband. They were joined by Ralph Abernathy. This was absolutely a critical moment in the Poor People's Campaign. And those striking workers, though 12 of them, including Louise Brown, were fired from their jobs for having the courage of their commitment, at least temporarily, they were able to win concessions from the management of that hospital to improve working conditions and pay. A victory we would think that has been sustained now for more than half a century. But when I'm talking to Louise Brown and listening to her story 50 years after that march, she tells me that working conditions at MUSC are actually worse today than they were in 1969, that those nurses and hospital workers in that facility cannot afford to receive care in the same place that they provided. That we have too many people who are unable to organize in this country to ensure that they are able to see a doctor, afford their prescription medications, work only one job instead of 2 or 3 just to make ends meet. And that disparity in pay that we talked about in 1969, well, in 2019, women in this country are paid 80 cents on the dollar for what men make in this country. And African American women, 61 cents on the dollar for what white men are making. Latinas, 53 cents for what white men are making in this country. We need cause for hope as we meet these challenges. And not too far from here, I believe I have found it. There is a young, not too much older than you, city council member in the DeSoto City Council named Candace Quarles. And thanks to her leadership, they just passed paid family leave in that community that ensures that if you need to take care of yourself or a family member or your child, you can still earn an income, that you will not lose your job. It is thanks to her and people like her that I know that we will have a minimum wage that is a living wage, that we will have health care for every single American, and we will never be denied the right to organize and use the leverage of our work to exact better conditions for those who provide it. Not too long ago, read a harrowing story. You may have read it as well, about a mass grave that was discovered in Fort Bend County, Texas. They were clearing the land to build a new school at Fort Bend ISD. And 95 graves were discovered of men and children who died between the years 1878 and 1911. Men and children who were literally worked to death in convict leasing gangs, working for the Imperial Sugar Company in Sugar Land, Texas, in Fort Bend County, through a program that was throughout this state, using people based on their color to build the wealth of this state and those who were of a different race and color. An enterprising young journalist named George Briggs, 25 years old, working for the San Antonio Express News, uncovered the shocking details of convict leasing in the state of Texas. His reporting, his stories, shamed the governor of the state of Texas into calling a special session to make sure that we ended this practice in 1911, 1912, forever after. Now, we would like to think that that victory has been sustained more than 100 years later, but if we only confront the criminal justice system in this country today that imprisons more than 2.3 million human beings, the largest prison population on the face of the planet, and one disproportionately comprised of people of color, we know that that work is not done. When members of law enforcement who have among the toughest jobs, and for whom we are grateful for the work that they provide, when some few of them are able to use force with impunity against those who they were sworn to protect and to serve, then we have our work cut out for us. But I have hope in this regard as well. I look to the example of Brittany Packnett in Ferguson, Missouri. After the shooting of Michael Brown, she helped the rest of the country understand what had happened, what it meant, talk to the conscience of our fellow Americans so that we can produce change in the same way that George Briggs did. That's going to ensure that we have true criminal justice reform, that we stop criminalizing people in communities of color just for who they are, and make sure that we give every single one of us the opportunity to live to their full potential. And lastly, I want to give you the example of Thelma White, also from El Paso, Texas, graduated as the valedictorian from the all-African-American Douglas High School in El Paso, Texas, the only school that she was allowed to attend. Had the courage to attempt to enroll in Texas Western College and was denied entry based on the color of her skin. Much like Dr. Lawrence Nixon, she took her case to the courts, assisted by an attorney named Thurgood Marshall. They won that case in front of the federal bench of R.E. Thomason and not only integrated Texas Western College, but integrated every institution of higher learning in the state of Texas, and in the process struck down the segregation clause in the state's constitution. Now, we would like to think that progress has ensued from that moment and that victory in 1954, but when we confront the fact that in this country there is $1.5 trillion in outstanding student loan debt, that the cost of education makes it too hard for too many to be able to improve themselves at institutions like Paul Quinn College, we understand that we have our work cut out for us. But at a town hall at TSU last year, I met an extraordinary young woman named Nena Umello who confronted these challenges and found a way to win the scholarships and the grants that allowed her to go to college without accruing any debt, wrote a book to share it with the rest of us, to meet that challenge and that disappointment with a power and joy, and then here at Paul Quinn College. Thanks to this board of trustees and this exceptional president, you have created the first urban work college in the United States of America, have defined the model, have set the example, are helping to show the rest of the country how to ensure that every single student has a job, has purpose and function and dignity in their lives, is able to cut the cost of tuition by more than $10,000, more than having the amount of student debt that you will have once you leave this place, and so many of you already connected to a guaranteed job. This is the future of higher education in the United States of America, and this gives me every confidence that we will meet these challenges of access to higher education by examples set by institutions like this one, investing more in historically black colleges and universities, ensuring that community college is free, and then ensuring that those who attend higher education are able to graduate debt-free so they can pursue their best selves in pursuit of this country's greatness. The challenges before us are the greatest of our lives. Those that I just enumerated, or the fact that we have more than 1 million dreamers in the United States of America, every bit as American as anyone here who live in a constant fear of deportation back to a country they've never known, whose language they do not speak. We have the opportunity to free them from that fear by making them U.S. citizens in this, their true home country, to contribute to the maximum potential to the shared greatness of the United States of America. Or we can follow the example of Dexter Evans. At a time when the city of Dallas, Texas, wanted to create the largest dump in the southwestern United States, and they wanted to put it right next to Paul Quinn College, Dexter organized a movement called We Are Not Trash that engaged civically before the Dallas City Council, brought in neighbors, people from every single walk of life together to confront those in positions of public trust and to help them do the right thing, and they did. We won that victory, but we must sustain it because we know that the greatest challenge that we face is the fact that this planet is warming, that we are polluting so much that too many of our fellow Americans cannot count on the air that they breathe or the water that they drink, and disproportionately this affects lower income communities where it's convenient for those in positions of power to place the waste. But if we're going to meet this challenge, keep this planet from warming another 2 degrees Celsius, after which the fires, the floods, and the droughts will consume the lives of our fellow human beings, if we're going to ensure that those communities that have been impacted the most are first in line going forward to benefit from the economic changes that take place, then we must follow the example of Dexter Evans and everyone who's been willing to stand up and do the right thing. Because at this moment, it must become absolutely clear to every single one of us that progress will not sustain itself, that history can roll in reverse, and that no victory is final and the work is never finished. We can take inspiration in those who came before us and fought for these victories, but we can never take comfort in what they've done because we too must fight. President Sorrell reminded me recently that no great thing ever comes out of a position of comfort. The good news is that this moment, as perilous, as tough, as challenging as it is, has given all of us an opportunity for greatness. So let's make this decision now that we will go out there and do great things, and we will do them together. Truly living we over me. Thank you all for having us out here today.